CalazCon is a show about war, obsession, colonialist occupation, and the many forms of violence those inflict. See the description for content warnings specific to this episode.
Welcome back, listeners and viewers, to CalazCon and the epilogue of pizza. This episode is sponsored by our squad sponsor, John Kings IV. In addition, if you've been enjoying CalazCon and would like to support it, head on over to Patreon at patreon.com/CalazCon. Today, I am joined by Mark.
Hello, I'm Mark. I go by he and them. I am playing Topo, our scout. And I'm just excited to see how this all wraps up.
As we all are. We also have Cole.
Hi there, I'm Cole, aka Ice Cold Brew. My pronouns are he, him, they, them. And I am your lovable rookie, now turned soldier, Dorian Branch. Also go by he, they.
Perfect. We are also joined by Alex.
Hey everybody, I'm Alex, he, him. I will be playing, as always, Laren Hetzford. You can find me on YouTube at First5, Twitter at First5Review, etc., etc. As always, a wonderful pleasure to be here.
Pleasure as always. And finally, we've got Jake.
Hello, I'm Jake. Use he, him pronouns. I will be playing Azara Sky, our infiltrator on Pizza for the last time. And I'm excited to get going.
Me too. And I am Matthew Guzdial, he, him pronouns. I am extremely Googleable if you would like to Google me. Today, as I mentioned, we're doing the epilogue. We've done it, we got through the dang thing, and now we're going to take a little bit of a look at what happens next. We have a set format. If this is your very first time listening to any of these epilogue episodes for CalazCon, we're going to start off with some drive talk. Then we're going to be doing some questions, followed by an increasingly distant view, little snapshots of what each pilot is doing X amount of time in the future. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into that first bit, the drive clocks. I went ahead and I awarded everybody a drive clock tick. Looking at your drives, I think everybody made some progress towards it in that last mission. I'm going to suggest we just go through in the same order, so starting with Mark. Mark, if I can ask you to read out Topo's drive.
Yeah, my drive is to find and destroy the R&D organization that took me and my buddies.
Yeah. Something like that would, of course, if we're following along with the rules of Beam Saber, cost 3 drive clocks. I wonder how many completed drive clocks this squad has. More on that in a second. Cole, can I go ahead and ask you to read Dorian's drive?
Sure thing. Dorian's drive is to convince my parents I'll be okay.
Right. So that's an individual drive, which means that 2 drive clocks would be enough for that. Alex, can I ask you to read Laren's?
Laren's is very simple. It is Secure a successor.
Mm-hmm. And finally, Jake, can I ask you to read Azara's?
Azara's drive was to kill Sebriel, Tempestia's first officer.
Yeah, and that worked really well, I think.
It went so great.
We can all agree. And those last two would be two drive clocks each. So I'm not going to belabor this. Between all four of you, you have exactly 2 completed drive clocks. They're not owned by the same person, though, which is, I think, great. Because it means nobody can just, be happy. Yeah. So Topo, you've got one, right?
I do, yeah.
And then Dorian, of all people, has the other one.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm opening up the floor. I'm taking down the sort of red ropes and caution tape. And this is just a bit of a discussion. We have 3 drives that could potentially be satisfied by spending those 2 drive clocks. What are people thinking? What are people feeling?
Is Dorian's drive a 2-clock drive?
Everybody but yours is a 2-clock drive.
Yeah. I'm happy donating my clock to Dorian. Or if
I'm
we
just going to
want
donate my clock to someone.
Yeah, if we want to give both of them to someone else, also totally cool by me.
Dorian's mobs are never allowed to find peace.
I mean, yeah, I mean, they literally saw Dorian lose an eye right in front of them. So I don't know if you come back from that. As a reminder, so our 3 sort of options here are Sebriel is killed, basically, option 1. Laren finds a successor, option 2. And Dorian's moms will stop worrying about him. Those are the 3 options, which means that any of the drives that don't get drive clocks spent on them, which includes Topo's, are guaranteed not to happen. So in none of the sort of scenes or narrativizing going forward will those happen.
Killing Sebriel would be pretty cool, actually.
Hey, look, I mean, Azara's kind of come full circle around wanting to kill Sebriel because of revenge, but if we want to kill this guy because he sucks,
he does
I'm
suck.
not going to say no.
Does suck.
This is my one good deed for the year.
Yeah, to me, I feel narratively, either Laren finding a successor or Sebriel getting got, I think is interesting. The other thing I should note is we're going to be jumping pretty far in the future. None of this has to be things that happen immediately. This isn't you're spending the drive clocks and then it's happening now, right? This is at any point, as we're narrating scenes going forward, we can have the thing happen from that drive clock.
Mm-hmm.
Alex, if I can ask you, what finding a successor for Laren, what is that? You mean a successor to be the captain of Pizza?
Well,
what is that?
actually,
What does the successor mean?
A successor mostly as a partner in crime to Memo.
Right.
Because all of this, if you guys recall, a couple sessions ago when Laren changed his drive, that was, inspired by the fact that he'd had a near-death experience and he was worried essentially of leaving Memo, alone with somebody else that, in his mind would not take care of her right.
Right.
If his job is he's just the forever CIA spook, yeah, I guess that would be his successor as captain of Pizza. But the most important thing for him, I think, is having somebody that he knows if something happens to him, he can hand Memo off to that person and they will be okay and they'll still be happy.
Totally.
Is that narratively representing your character deciding not to pursue their drive and help you with yours? What does that mean fictionally? Sure.
I think we have a broad range of things that can mean fictionally. I think that it should definitely look like that person helping, right? If Dorian and Topo give each a drive clock to Azara so that you kill Sebriel, I think that, when we narrate the kill, those 2 are involved. They helped out in some way. If those 2 are donating to Laren to find a successor, there's There's a pretty obvious one that we've sort of been setting up for a long time with Dorian paralleling Laren, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where like that could be how Dorian helps out. Topo could help out in a more abstract way, right?
I was thinking it over, and also sorry if I stepped away for a little bit. During that time, my cat somehow found a way to tangle himself up in cords.
Yeah.
So I literally had to cut him free.
Oh no.
Because he's an idiot. And now he's ashamed of himself for being caught. But I like that direction of Dorian giving up that drive clock of assuring their parents they will be just fine.
Right.
And like the parents getting like a letter of Dorian being promoted to captain to work with Memo.
Totally.
That is good.
Well, this is the interesting thing, though, because Dorian might not actually be Laren's first pick for a successor.
Wow.
After all of these experiences, maybe not as successor of Pizza, but successor as a partner in crime with Memo, I think Laren has been looking at Topo a little bit.
Oh, interesting.
This is something I was never really able to get on screen in the last downtime, and I kind of wanted to. But I think Laren sees something kind of similar in the two of them, between, Topo's history and Memo's, how Memo was kind of born into the world and treated by most people, more as software than a person, and so both of them have kind of gone through that experience in their formative years of being treated as less than human.
Sure.
And I think that strikes a chord with Laren and makes him, convinces him that whatever else happens, Topo would treat Memo well and with respect.
I mean, there's a way we can do both, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing saying Dorian couldn't take over as the captain of the Hummingbird and Topo couldn't end up with Memo, right? We can do both.
That is true. And
That's
they
very
would
true.
both be the ones with the drive clocks, right?
It's true. How we feeling?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's pencil that in. If we start getting to these later steps and we're like, nah, actually that doesn't feel right, or let's take another pass or whatever, totally fine. But for now, let's say that Topo and Dorian are going to spend one drive clock each so that Laren completes his drive and finds a successor. This next bit it should be interesting. So I'm just going to read the instructions. Go through each pilot asking a question about a belief to everyone else. So one of your character's beliefs to everyone else, round robin style. So each player asks one question, then another asks a question. Once all players have asked a question, a new round of questions begins.
What kind of questions are we looking at?
So you're taking a look at your question about a belief. So you would say, as Topo, you might say...
People say Azara's too quiet, yeah.
Exactly. What does everyone think about that? Is that true?
Oh, interesting.
Just okay, cool. Got it.
We're asking everybody about a belief about a specific character, not...
You got it.
Oh, you're not just asking them directly. Okay.
Right, okay.
That's really good.
Yeah. Does anybody have one that, leaps out to them?
I mean, do we want to do a victory lap and one last time get to read off all of our beliefs? It's always fun.
Sure. I'm game. It'd be good to see where everybody's sort of ending at. Let's start with Jake. We'll go in reverse order that I typically do. So we'll start with you reading all of your beliefs to build audience expectations of, which one will it be?
Hilariously, the one I was thinking of would be the last one I'd read.
Oh,
So
good.
works out well.
Good. And then we'll have Alex read all of Laren's beliefs and so on and so forth. And then we'll wrap back around to you, Jake, for the first question. Does that sound okay?
Sounds great.
All right. Jake, take it away.
I have two beliefs about Dorian. One is Dorian is way too eager for quote-unquote this work. And Dorian needs to shut the fuck up sometimes.
Awesome.
beliefs about Topo are Topo and I are both outsiders. They've got my back. Topo is focused on the moment. They can ground me in the present. And Topo is my best friend, or whatever is closest to that on Logel. Stealth Bros for life.
Hell yeah.
Finally, about Laren, I have to keep an eye on him. I know his secret. Laren does things unilaterally, but the consequences affect us all. I'll protect him. And the final one that I thought about asking everybody about is Laren is taking all of this too personally, but we're a squad if a misfit one. It's not all on him.
Speaking of, Alex, can you read out Laren's beliefs?
So, Laren's beliefs for Dorian are, Dorian is a good kid and a better recruit, but he'll crack if I push him too hard. Dorian would thrive in a more honest unit, and Dorian will never stop pushing himself. I need to find a way to constructively direct his energy. For Azara, he's got, Azara's useful, but this isn't their fight. I need to find a way to get them bought in. And Azara seems directionless. I could give him that direction. For Topo, if there's anyone I can depend on to get the job done, it's probably Topo. And we've certainly come full circle on that. And Topo is my top flashbang candidate, but I don't know if I have what it takes to do that to them again.
Jesus.
Cole, can I ask you to read out Dorian's beliefs?
Sure thing. So Dorian's belief about Laren is Laren always makes the right call. And Laren feels like a father figure. He should be protected. Topo's a survivor. They would drop me given the chance. Topo is straight and to the point to a fault. Azara Sky is Azara is hiding something from us. And then the second one is a bullheaded, stubborn pilot who will choose his own goals over the squad.
Interesting. Finally, Mark, can I get you to read Topo's beliefs?
Yeah. Topo's beliefs about Azara. Folks say he's too quiet, but I totally get it and respect him for it. From Laren, thinks he's just quote-unquote lucky, but everyone knows where he really gets it from. And he will burn himself out to make sure his teammates make it. And for Dorian, this kid has no idea what they're getting into.
Incredible. And let's wrap back around. So Jake, you're starting us off. What's the question that you're asking about a belief?
The question I have about this, which is Laren is taking this also personally, but we're a squad if a misfit one. It's not all on him. What's the consequences of what happened after our mission? Does that mean that we're still a squad?
Oh, sure.
Are we even still a squad anymore?
I think internally, we're certainly still a squad. Like, Laren, at the very least, would want everybody to stay on the squad. Externally, I don't know. Do we have to turn in our badge?
Yeah, I mean, I asked this kind of as a tee up to say, like, the war keeps going on.
Yep.
Regardless of what happens here, this is one planet in a million planets. So. Yep. Even if we don't have the fight here, we fight somewhere else. And I think, if I'm speaking from Azara's perspective, I think he's close enough to everybody else to say, well, what else are we going to do?
I can say that Antonia Pai, who's been your commanding officer and the organizer of this round of Zero Accountability, by now the listener will have heard her having a conversation with a mysterious figure who has yet to be named, but who a number of you have already had conversations with. And in that conversation, Antonia did ask that the entirety of this squad be kept together and reassigned to another front.
And I guess to really lay on the point of it's not all on Laren, is Laren the one making sure we all stay together, or is it somebody else in the squad that does it? Like, would anybody step up and say, no, we need to stick together? Well, or is it all on Laren?
I mean, I know that Jake is the one asking the question, but I feel like in the wake of the final mission and whatever else happens on Logel, probably a couple days after, Laren probably would have had a scene where he, you know, like pulled everybody in for another meeting and was like, hey, if people want to go their own way, I get it and I'll respect that, but it'd be real cool if everybody stayed, you know, and then they could figure it out from there.
Would anybody want to go their own way?
Not immediately.
Yeah, I think Dorian would definitely probably stay on board because he's like, I think he thinks this is probably like a very reassuring job in some sense, which is wild to say out loud. But yeah.
Yeah. Going from signing up in order to go to Anime Con to, being a soldier with this squad is the most comforting job I can imagine. Really quite grim.
Whew.
Okay. Well, I think that we can at least say in the near term that the squad stays together. Laren, the question was technically about you. Why don't we have Alex, you give us one of Laren's beliefs as a question.
So, we've already kind of half talked through it, but I definitely think the question I had top of mind was, Dorian would thrive in a more honest unit.
And the question is just like, is that true?
Yeah, I think it would be phrased, you know, as Laren taking Dorian aside, you know, like at some point or another and being like, look, I get that this has all been a lot. And if you want to, like, you know, like find a unit somewhere else, like, I will help you do, you know, like do what we need to make sure that happens. Like, you know, because obviously, crazy spy shit is not necessarily what Dorian signed up for. And I think Laren has that extra level of concern because this kid has already nearly blown himself up twice.
You know, I think Dorian would like look at it and think about it for a second and just say, but it wouldn't be a squad under you though. So I'd rather stay here.
Ooh, okay, yeah. Yeah, I don't think Laren would be able.
Yeah, fair.
I don't think he'd be able to say no to that. I think he'd have to lump Dorian next to Memo in the find a successor to protect.
Tomo, you're here now. Taking care of Memo and Dorian.
Yes.
If I'm thinking, you know, as like a co-storyteller here, I think
please.
One of Dorian's strengths, and frankly, Cole, one of your strengths, is like thinking outside the box and like taking risks and being proactive, and that is not actually that helpful in a more honest unit. Like that does kind of work only in a spy unit, you know?
Also extremely proficient with railguns.
Right.
Extremely proficient.
Yeah.
I'm just imagining Dorian in like a regular like front lines unit. Dorian, why did you fire that railgun right in front of us? To get rid of the enemy, sir. It's right there.
Right.
He calculated it. He knew nothing was going to happen.
Listen, I might be bad at math. Full stop. That's it.
That's good.
The risk I took was calculated, but damn, I'm bad at math. Okay. That's a good one. Dorian, do you have a question?
I think I'm just going to go to Azara. I think Dorian is just going to ask something along the lines of like, you know, if things didn't roll out the way they did at the end and you had to go chase down Sebril, would you have left us in that moment to go do it?
Out of character. No. I think Azara has come to the fact that pursuing this was more harmful than it was. You know, the pain of remembering and pursuing was greater than any, like, you know, it didn't bring him any comfort. In character, I think Azara would say something along the lines of like, you know, Sebril's a ghost. I don't think anything can kill him. We tried our best, and, you know, it was more important to complete the mission, save your parents, get the doctor, etc. It's not worth it.
Oh, you cared about my parents. Thank you.
Dorian walking around with his new eye patch. Mark, can you give us a question from one of Topo's beliefs.
Yeah, I think from Dorian's, this kid has no idea what they're getting into. The question is, how much more was this than you expected it to be?
Honestly, I'm used to swinging with whatever, so I think the most surprising aspect was we started working together with Tempestia. I could not see that coming.
Look at us. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? Technically, we failed our mission. Technically. Fuck, we failed. Shit. Yeah, I had a decent idea something was going to go on. Did I know I was going to be working on a pizza shop? Fuck no. No plans for that.
Damn, true. Okay. With that, we have finished our first round of questions. Anybody have, jumping on it? I've got the next one.
Yeah, if nobody else wants to go, I can do one.
Please.
Okay, so the one I'm going to do is a Topo one.
Mm-hmm.
Topo is my top flashbang candidate, but I don't know if I have what it takes to do that to them again. He is not phrasing it like that.
No. Yeah, no.
I think it is more the question is, what do we do about Project Flashbang? And it's a much more open question for the group. And I don't know. The way I imagine this scene going is everybody or somebody perhaps making a comment about well, damn, Red's gone, rip to a real one. And Lara just snapping back with yeah, no, absolutely not. This is Project Flashbang. This is the kind of shit that man did. Do not feel sorry at all.
Why would you feel sorry? He's go and get married. Yeah, you got wiped up.
Do not send well wishes. No congratulations cards.
Weird is the funeral is a closed casket. I wonder why.
Yeah. And I think from there it would be a question for the group at large of kind of like a code of ethics question almost of what do we do about Project Flashbang? Is this a goal for us going forward? Burying any possibility of this thing getting used again, that sort of stuff.
So as a reminder, just for everybody and for the audience, Project Flashbang was a synthesized drug that Red and some of the other original members of Zero Accountability developed in order to make themselves both fast enough and also unpredictable enough that Tempestia couldn't predict their next actions. And that was the same sort of system that then got sort of automated and turned into those auto refs that all of her squad had.
And the reason it was so bad, if I recall, is that it usually ended up melting the brains of whoever used it. It was very much a one-time use.
I think Red probably used it multiple times, but yes, I think this is definitely...
And you're telling me that didn't melt his brain?
No, he seems fine, I think. He seems normal. He's chill. But yeah, no, this is definitely extremely detrimental effects. You are very much a limited number of time uses of this thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we have an option in the character, as Zara says, fuck that. No way. We'll drink some caffeine if we need to. If we pop some caffeine pills, if we need to really stay up late or whatever. It's not worth melting our brains to be a little bit better. Plus, Tempestia's gone. So I
absolutely agree. I'm never going to use something like this. If I was going to use it, I would have already done so.
Yeah, Topo is violently against it.
Yeah.
The question is, how hard are we burying this?
All the way.
All the way.
We can launch it into space. Just saying. We got a railgun.
Do you all launch the plans into space? The manila envelope? Or do you just burn it? What's the scene?
Oh, I do like the idea. I like the image of the four of us standing around one of those fires and those big 50-gallon drums.
Yeah.
And just each of us throwing in one of the parts of the plan is a cathartic burning of the past.
Yeah. That's good. I like that.
Plus, Dorian, people People can find stuff in space. People travel in space all the time.
Yeah, you're about to travel in space, probably.
Yeah.
1,000 years later, this like little metal briefcase just like bounces off the bow of the ship, and somebody's very confused and goes investigates.
Oh, they got drugs in this.
Shit.
It's actually the briefcase from Pulp Fiction. It has been the whole time.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Knew it.
Tie-in.
Okay, good. I like that one. I think Topo. Yeah, Mark. Another Topo one, because that was a Topo question.
I think the question about Laren burning himself out to make sure his teammates make it. How burnt out does Laren feel?
Oh, wow, true.
Whew, yeah, that's I think it's a medium burnout at this point. He did pick up a scar, so at least a little burnt out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to say that actually is a big part of him. Like, not necessarily burnout, but he does have that haunted scar where he does, always kind of second guess his choices, whether they are the best for the team.
Yeah. Is there anything else there, do we think? Do we get anything of like
an actual, like a full scene?
It doesn't have to be a full scene, but do we get like a snapshot of like, how do we see Laren being burnt out? Or how do we see Laren trying to recover from being burnt out?
Well, I do have a question. So you mentioned before that Antonia recommended that a lot of the group, or that the whole group, be reassigned somewhere else, which makes me sound like the group would be separated from Antonia, right?
It's possible, yeah.
Okay. Because I feel like the way it would manifest in the short term is that he would defer to Antonia a lot more, which, like, I know she's technically his direct boss, but, like, he would be, much more complacent.
Sure.
And letting her, like, call the shots and not necessarily taking the initiative on his own.
Yeah, that makes sense. For however long this front of the war stays open.
Mm-hmm.
But, if we're thinking just to look ahead a little bit, right, we're probably weeks out from CalazCon winding down and all of these CalazCon people just leaving the planet again, right? And, like, the Jovangelian force has been pretty much decimated here, right?
Mm-hmm.
The DFS is pretty much going to sweep through Logel. At least that's what I would think.
Well, they thought that once.
It's true. Okay, so we got a closed loop there because Laren asked Topo a question, Topo asked Laren a question. So either of the other two, Dorian or Azara, either questions from either of you two.
I'm reminded our two beliefs about each other. Can you tell that they were written after we had a fight?
Uh-huh.
Yep. Yeah, I have a question for Dorian, or I guess about Dorian, which is the belief about being way too eager for this work. Again, we kind of touched on this a little bit, but like, longer term, does Dorian's eagerness to prove himself and do this work, does that wane over time, or is that something that stays with him, through various fronts and over time? Like, is that something that sticks with him?
So, I really do love that you called Dorian eager for this work, because I was going to actually reference it as a, when you start a brand new job and you have that like initial excitement, and you're like, yeah, this is gonna be a great gig, and then you get into it and like the honeymoon phase ends, and you're just like here, and you're just clocked in. That's where your Dorian had that eagerness, but he's like, I can continue to work on this. It's like, it works. Y'all are better than most of my bosses.
But he treats it like a job.
Yeah.
Sure.
I like that. I mean, I don't. That's terrible.
I mean, I'm a little curious to add to this question. Does Dorian being fractious influence this at all?
Fractious, yes. Dorian is a very stressed out individual. I think they always want to push themselves to be on top of their game. They want to put their not really willing to follow direction. That's why they improvise fairly often, because they want to impress in certain ways. I'm realizing I changed the name of the playbook on our spreadsheet to the soldier, but I never changed the description from the rookie. So it's just the soldier, an inexperienced and eager recruit. And I think that describes Dorian to a T.
Sure. Really good. Dorian, you want to question back, I guess?
Yeah. So, God, I had a really mean question for a split second there.
Please.
I think Dorian, just like while they're sitting drinking a few weeks after the Goliath incident, and this is the aftermath of everything, I think Dorian just is like sipping a beer, looks at Topo and says, "Do you ever pull that stick out of your ass?" Going to the Topo straight and to the point to a fault.
Damn.
Not unless I need to hit someone with it.
That's so good.
It's in character, the two of us laughing. Oh.
And that's the end of it.
Really good.
Just a short nod and continue sipping.
Mm-hmm.
That's so funny.
Okay. I think we have one final round of questions. Does anybody want to jump on it? Does anyone want to get started?
I'll ask Azara's folks say he's too quiet, but I get it. Do we feel like Azara has become less quiet? Or like opened up? And if so, has Topo lost respect for them?
Honestly, I think so. I think Azara has, maybe over some drinks, over the course of the squad sort of, hanging out, over however much time. The question's probably asked, like, so who was that guy? And, like, why did you hate that guy so much? Like, I never really understood exactly what was his deal. And I think Azara does, over time, kind of talk about what happened with his home planet. And yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you a question about Topo too, which is great. So yeah, I think maybe it does make you respect him a little bit less. But I think the vibe I want to get from Azara's sort of whole arc is that I think this is more talking about what happened factually and talking about his home world in like a way that someone talks about their hometown that they don't go back to often, which is like, recognizing it for its flaws, but still kind of liking it. It's not as dramatic or it's not as melodramatic as maybe as it would have been at the beginning of this story. So I don't know. I guess that back on you. Like, does that make Topo respect him less?
I don't think it does. I think because there's like it's kind of a similar flavor reason to do something.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Kind of related to this is my belief about Topo about being focused in the moment and being grounded in the present. Is how does Topo react, or how does Topo feel about the fact that this R&D group continues to keep going? That we lost Banks, wherever like how like that's all in the past, and I think this belief was reflected in the fact that like Azara saw in Topo this idea of like not holding on to the past. But I'm curious, like, is that still true?
Yeah. Wow, that's a really good question. I think there's kind of the two sides, because as soon as Topo saw the doctor, like bets are off. Definitely not like focused on the mission anymore. I think that like the Institute or whatever is like the one thing that does pull Topo out of focusing on what's in front of them. Yeah.
It was Tempestia's plan to get Dr. Kappas, and she didn't, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she easily could have gotten the rest of that institute.
Yeah.
And this could have just become like a Jovangelian institute.
Mm-hmm.
And we get like, crazy black ops, weird science Jovangelian monsters on the field, right? Is this something where I'm expanding on Azara's question. Is this something where for Topo, like, well, you got the guy who was like responsible for what happened specifically to you and your buds. If the rest of the entity still remains, is it still that same like impulse? That's still that same like driving impulse, or?
I think it's more of like a dull pain instead of a sharp, like toothache. It's like, oh, that's like, I should go get that checked out one of these days instead of I need to get this tooth pulled right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ugh.
Fair. Phantom pain.
The chronic pain of nostalgia.
What nostalgia? Maybe the chronic pain of trauma.
Yeah, the chronic pain of trauma is probably more accurate.
Yeah. Okay, well, we got another closed loop there. Dorian or Laren, either of you have your final question?
Yeah. I'm going to ask Azara a question, but I also do want to know, at some point, am I going to get a chance to ask Tempestia a question?
Yeah, that's a good...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we still have some other stuff coming up that could come in, and this is jazz, baby. This is freeform.
Yeah. All right.
We're not even playing Beam Saber anymore.
We're not
Let's
even.
go.
Yeah. I got a numbered list over here, but there's not saying there's no like letters in between these numbers. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Then for Azara, I'm going to go with Azara's useful, but this isn't their fight. I need to find a way to get them bought in. And I guess the question is going to be, like now that we're at the end of all of this, Laren is just going to point blank ask this guy, well, what is your fight now? How, have you found something? And I think specifically the point when he asks this is if/when the word comes down from Antonia Pye that she wants them all reassigned to another unit. He would word it very casually as so taking opinions, like what kind of a unit would you like to be in after this? But he'd be wording it with he'd be asking this question to everybody, but Azara is the one he'd be the most interested in knowing.
Sure.
Yeah. Honestly, that's a really great question, and I think kind of speaks to Azara's kind of one of my harms is nihilistic. And I have a scar of reckless. I think Azara is just kind of there's nothing really for me here apart from Belladonna, who we probably date a little bit, but it's not going to work out long term. Going home doesn't mean anything to me because it's such a different place. Wherever you're all going, my fight's for you all. I don't really care about any of this other stuff. You all are my friends, and that's good enough for now. And I don't really have a lot of transferable skills otherwise.
Yeah. Damn. And I think that leaves us with Dorian.
So I got two directions I can go with this, and it's both going to be directed at Laren. I think it's, again, a different bar setting. It's a different dive bar we went to. Still a few weeks after. And I think Dorian just kind of looks over at Laren and says, Laren, you ever thought about being a father?
I'm not really married at the moment.
I mean, what, and Dorian's obviously been, drinking a bit too much. I mean, what, does men feel I don't know. Does men feel like a kid for Captain Laren?
Or is it a wife?
Just what the hell has the rank and file been saying?
Yeah, that would be my question, basically. Because if Laren feels like a father figure, he should be protected.
Yes. I think in the immediate, Laren would not understand the question of, are you my dad at all? And I feel in this moment in the wake of Logel, fatherhood is not remotely on his mind.
Sure.
But even though he doesn't ever say it, I think he still probably is more like a mother hen over Dorian, and constantly having to fuss over him.
Yeah.
Dorian, little smear of pizza sauce on one cheek.
Yeah. Just on his t-shirt, oh gosh.
Really good.
Now, Dorian, this is how you put your lieutenant stripes on when you get promoted.
He teaches them how to tie a tie.
Yes.
Oh no.
I feel like one of Dorian's moms is butch enough to tie ties regularly.
Yeah. I mean, Dorian had to, like, I bet you Dorian's mom's probably told him to, like, you have to wear a nice shirt and tie when going for your interview.
When you go to enlist.
Rolvers are just covered in, like, blood and tattered clothing.
Don't forget your little dress uniform hat.
Well, we've reached the end of the sanctioned questions, and now we're in unsanctioned questions territory.
Whoa.
Yeah, questions after dark. Illegal questions. If they make questions illegal, only question askers will be criminals. This is nothing.
We don't necessarily have to do it right now, because there is also the question of, are we ever going to run into Tempestia again in any of these future tableaus we're going to be setting?
Totally.
And that might be an ideal moment to ask a question, but we can do it now. That's fine.
It's completely up to you. If you'd like to hold off on it, we can always do like a flashback, right? Even if we're
let's hold off on it.
So we have now completed 2 of our 5 steps. The step 3 is that we're going to have round-robin descriptions of what each character is doing in the weeks after Goliath falls. I can give a little bit more context here now that like the vast majority of these have already been recorded.
Mm-hmm.
After you all got out, in the various different ways that you did that, the self-destruct on Goliath had already been primed and was already like counting down. Goliath, along with the other 2 CalazCon Avies, the Hope of Calazar and the Spirit of Calaz. Oh, I'm not going to remember. Oh no, I didn't look ahead because I didn't think I'd have to remember anything from this.
Oh no.
Anyway, the other 2 big Avies that were part of like the big show that the CalazCon people were putting on, they got lured towards the spaceport, and then all 3 of them got blowed up. So they've all 3 exploded. Everybody inside who was like being held against their will got out. So the only people left inside were the, what's a strong enough term? Monsters who were like willingly in there and like willingly in there till the end.
Who like paid money to be in there.
I mean, yeah, some of them assumably also got out, right?
Oh, sure.
The last ones are just like the true freaks.
Right.
They were just like, no, I'm going down with the ship. I'm the Titanic violin playing person. That's me. So that all happens. I can also say that, Red disappears. I don't know if he's probably presumed dead by some, and others probably know what's up. Does not go back to the legislative sessions. Tempestia has also left the planet in this time, and that means that her squad is gone too. Unsurprisingly, the ceasefire with the Jomangelians probably does not last. Once like Goliath is confirmed and dealt with, right? But they are massively, harmed by fighting a 2-front battle. And this is also probably in this few weeks is probably when, as I was saying, the like Exodus Republic folks, all the CalazCon people are starting to leave. So I think we're in an interesting transitional period in these few weeks. And that can be few or a few as many as you'd like to interpret few to mean. So sort of in this sort of weird transitionary period, where do we think we see your folks, your characters?
Well, we already talked a little bit about Laren adopting a bit more of a passive role during this cleanup phase.
Sure.
I think a big question is, so like we don't have our pizza base anymore, right?
I think right now you could still have the pizza base and still be like putting scenes in there.
Okay. I was say because that probably changes the color of it a lot. Whether we actually have our secure FOB that we spent all season, building up or not.
Yeah, I think you can still definitely be in there. At least like towards the beginning of this period, right?
Okay, then yeah. I think Laren definitely, like we mentioned, he's a little bit more passive, and like for him right now, this has also become, like very similar to Dorian and Azara. Like this is just kind of the job at the moment.
Sure.
And so he's not really pursuing the next few fights with the same zeal as before.
Sure.
Because both of his big targets are gone. One they successfully gotten, one has left the planet.
Yep.
And I think that he also tries turning a lot of that energy towards like trying to hype up Memo throughout the citizenship process that she's going through.
Sure.
Because that was
think
kind
she's
of
got it. I think to be clear, right? Like that was part of the deal with Red. That clock is complete. She has citizenship. Now, there might be the very usual early citizenship things where there's like she's got to do like a swearing in ceremony and maybe there's a test, etc. Right?
Yeah.
Like there could still be rigmarole if you want there to be, but I do want to like respect the mechanics of like she's got it.
Okay, yeah. In that case, I still like the idea of him trying to hype her up.
Sure.
But maybe it is less for the citizenship status and more to, I guess, establish her as like a member of the squad in her own right.
Totally.
Because I don't think Laren has ever voiced this to anybody else, but the whole plan and the whole reason why he was so gung-ho about bagging a big head like Tempestia's was specifically so that he could go parade it around and be like, hey, look at this amazing thing, Memo accomplished.
Right.
And using that as a springboard to, like get her effectively the citizenship that she ended up getting.
Right.
And so I think he is still kind of pursuing that plan, but he's pivoted to, hey, check this out. Look what we managed to like absolutely wreck.
Well, I wonder if, you're saying Laren's taking a sort of more passive role. Memo was always sort of like, giving you guidance and stuff. What if Memo is basically just doing Laren's job? Like publicly now?
That could be a thing, yeah.
And then as you're doing this like cleanup of like any Exodun forces that like are causing trouble or don't want to leave the planet or like any holdouts of the Jovangelian forces, right? Like if she's doing those cleanup missions, right? And those are going, I don't know, you can tell me how they're going, right?
Well, I mean, it almost feels like cheating to just say, yeah, Memo does great, we win, yay. But like, I think that, like they've been working together for a good decade or two at this point. Memo has more than demonstrated that she is an effective strategist. I think it's definitely a job she's more capable of doing.
Totally.
So I would think that the missions relatively go well, given that, and like the disparity of power between the factions.
Yeah, I think that's a big part, right? Like by the end, you all were hitting at the sort of quality of like a tier 3 squad.
Oh yeah.
And
baseline. Before we started throwing our 5 bonuses on top.
Yeah, exactly. And so like, the Jovangelians only have tier 3 squads left on the planet, right? And the highest tiers of the corporatocracy, the CalazCon people, are also tier 3, right? Like the early birds in Calaz Clash are tier 3. So like, I think that you all are no longer underdogs, right? I think you can go into these missions and just like be confident that you can do them.
Ooh, this is another interesting question. So at this point, is Pizza still undercover, or are we operating more openly?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't want to make that call myself. I think that's for everybody here.
I'm trying to think if we actually did anything in the last few missions to... Well, actually, no. Obviously, we're stuck out in the open because we just lost our alliance with Tempestia, and she could just tell them where our base is.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair.
I
True.
think the kind of cat's out of the bag, I think, for old pizza.
No longer redacted.
But that's also kind of cool, like, we're not like something invisible that strikes. Is like, we're like boogeymen now. Like, people know. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
And it's also tremendously funny. People be like, did you guys hear that fucking bad pizza shop was like a secret ops?
That all makes so much sense now.
Yeah. I love this. I love everyone learns pizza was a Black Ops squad. I'm going to italicize everyone.
It is the news of the week on Galactic Twitter.
Everybody on TikTok is like, can you believe this?
Which honestly, like, if we talked about like getting reassigned and going to a different place, like that actually kind of makes sense. It's like, if it's a big deal and people start finding out, like, that's not good for a military thing.
No, it's not.
Right.
Like, regardless of whether we're secret or not. Like, that's,
Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot. Okay. Do we have a moment here that we can, like, zoom the camera in on? I'm not asking for a scene, but just, like, and specifically, this is a question for Alex. Like, what's the, like, snapshot of a moment where we see, like, Laren and maybe the rest of the squad, like, taking orders from Memo or, like, wiping up some remaining forces somewhere or something like that?
You know, I bet you this is what it is Laren isn't even in the Hummingbird during, like, an operation. And he has been, like, planted on foot because he's been doing that a lot more often lately.
Yeah, sure.
And he is, like, pursuing a specific, like, surprise attack objective of some sort,
Sure.
Where, like, normally the opposition would expect him to be with his mech, but with Memo in full control of the crew and all that, and not having to use him as a proxy.
Right.
He could just pop out with a rocket launcher and, like, blast a random AV in the back.
Hell yeah. I like that a lot. Okay, that's scene one. That's what Laren is up to a few weeks after Goliath goes down. He's about to rocket launcher somebody. Anybody else have some ideas?
Azara, like all of us, I think, if I'm looking at all of our harm, we all got really messed up at that fight.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah.
And Belladonna also did as well.
True.
She came very close to dying, in fact, if I'm remembering your Devil Sparkins.
Yep.
The broad pitch of what Azara is going to do in these next couple of weeks, being loosely termed, is a combination of it's a lot of it spent with Belladonna healing, and then once Laren floats the idea of, hey, we might get reassigned or go somewhere else, I think Azara is going to try to acquire a spaceship.
Oh, okay.
In a way of, like, we can still do our thing, but, like, we have, like, an asset that's ours, like that's the crew's.
That's
He's basically asking Belladonna to help him do this. I think both of them kind of knowing that this is, again, like, I think they're dating and, they're spending time together and whatever, but I think both of them kind of realize this is, like, not a long-term thing.
Sure.
And I think just, like, partially if I'm thinking as a way to kind of clear her name because she was associated with CalazCon. And so the idea of being like, oh, she's helping the DFS,
Yeah.
reacquire spaceships, and for us to kind of have our own place.
Totally.
That, I don't know what the Hummingbird situation is vis-a-vis, like, ownership. But, having another option, having sort of a way to travel, I think would be worthwhile.
Yeah. Alex, you should answer this. But I wouldn't guess that the Hummingbird is set up for interplanetary flight.
Yeah.
I think it is a on a planet sort of AVI.
Yes.
I think the camera frames this. Like, if this was in the TV, in the anime of this, this is framed as like, oh shit, Azara's like getting a spaceship and is going to abandon everybody.
Oh, sure.
But
sure.
It has a big giant tarp and reveals it to everybody. It's I got us a ship.
That's a big tarp. If this,
That's a huge tarp.
If this ship can carry everybody's AVs and everybody, it's a very big tarp.
Yeah, here's my Star Destroyer.
That's at least 10
How did you even get
material.
that in the base?
The power of magic.
Or is it more of a everybody getting dragged to the outskirts of town, for a special announcement?
Oh, like again, I'm thinking about how this would be framed as a TV show. It's very dramatically revealed with a tarp, but it's just like the model of the ship.
Mm.
And then it's like
Smash cut to the real ship on the other.
yeah, the actual ship's like on the outside of town. It's fucking gigantic. I can't bring it here. What are you talking about?
Have a stock photo of it.
That you framed for some reason.
God.
That's great. I love that. What do we think this ship is like? Is this like a cobbled together? Is this like a Belladonna original? Is this like an old ship you refurbished?
I like the idea of it being an old ship that we refurbished.
Yeah,
like I think it's pretty janky.
Sure.
But Belladonna literally used to work for an organization called Jacob's Junkers.
Yeah, sure.
And so I think is good at, has the sort of skills. And I imagine, I don't know what Split Second's up to. I imagine Split Second might be able to help us.
Yeah.
Sort of cobble this thing together so that it's like, again, part of Azara's idea is like, you don't want it to be super nice. I want to be a little inconspicuous,
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how many thumbs does the ship need?
As many as you want.
Oh my goodness.
That is my gift to you. You can put a thumb in every room if you want to.
Azara, you were always my favorite. Tell no one.
Oh, man.
Split Second is lying. Everyone's Split Second's favorite. Okay, great. Love that. Love to have a ship. Do you have a name for this, Jake?
Ooh. Let me find my ship name.
Oh, okay.
I'm glad other people have a ship name document.
Well, in the meantime, while we wait for Jake to find a ship name, Cole or Mark, do we have a few weeks look at Dorian or Topo?
Yeah. I think I have a pretty good idea of like what happens in the following weeks. I think it's a lot of Dorian 1 getting used to the eye patch. But also there's a lot of conversations of both his moms just showing up and checking on him and him kind of just saying he's fine, just waving them away and such. And then a few weeks in is like they're at the gates of when like all the ships for CalazCon come in. It's like week 15. This is like a special like week 20 pass that people are coming in for, and they're on the opposite end trying to exit, and Dorian is just trying to get them out of Logel and just be like, I'm fine. I got the captain. I got Azara. I got Topo. I got Split Second. Like we're good. Nothing too big's gonna happen yet. But they got me on paper duty for a little bit.
I mean, is that the excuse Dorian gives that like, I'm going to be working a desk job? Because like, there's other things you could be saying about like, this is winding down. I won't be here for long.
Well, yeah, I think they say like the exact phrasing was, I'm just on paper duty for a little bit.
Right.
And then it's going to wind down, and then I'm just doing some recon. I'm not doing too much work. I'm just following some people, like following the action for a little bit. That's all. Making sure things are fine. Q2, literally that morning before they were sent off, of Dorian popping out next to Laren with a rocket launcher.
Okay, I see. So this is Dorian lying to their moms.
Yeah.
Awesome. You know what? Parents love it when you lie to them, especially when they're worried about you.
Exactly.
Incredible. Do they go home here? Do they buy it enough to leave? Or are they just like convinced enough that even if they worry, do they believe that you can take care of yourself now because they've seen it firsthand? Or do you think they aren't there yet?
I think it is that very reluctant of, if anything goes wrong, please,
Sure.
you can always come home kind of feel.
Yeah.
It's definitely that, like, you say it so confidently, I have no choice but to believe you about it,
Sure.
even if I have my own doubts.
Sure.
So I think they're like leaving, but there's always like as Dorian sees him off to the gate, there's that little trade off where like Dorian just like waits, sees him go around the corner.
Yeah.
But there's like a window that they can see Dorian walking back through the terminal from, and they're both just like standing there holding hands together, just watching him go, and then disappearing into the crowd.
Yeah. That's what it is to be a mom.
Yeah.
I mean, a good mom. There's bad moms, too.
There's
There's plenty of those.
Would Tempestia be a good mom or a bad mom?
You're making a big assumption that there isn't already a terrible, illicit Red and Tempestia child somewhere.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That child is just like that TikTok video of the little kid running around saying, the person saying, "What do you have?" And the kid says, "A knife."
Except it was
Except Red
Tempestia.
yelling, "Yes!"
Yes, Tempestia's yes. Tempestia and Red together cheering. Yes, yes. Finally, they have a knife. Oh, man. No, Tempestia would be the worst kind of, like, overbearing, over-expecting, but, like,
Stage
withholding of emotion mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Terrible sports mom.
Terrible sports mom, the worst kind. And then, like, goes up and, like, argues with the refs, right? Like, yells at the coach because she thinks she could do a better job. And unfortunately for everyone, she's probably right.
Terrible sports mom, but the sport is actual warfare.
Yeah, basically.
Really quick final thought that just popped into my head.
Always.
Red and Tempestia's kid would be way into airsoft. Like, way too into airsoft.
I think they would graduate pretty quickly to something harder.
Yeah, just her real guns. Yeah.
For bringing bullets to airsoft. That's
God.
You wanted me to win, didn't you?
Look, the airsoft can't penetrate walls. These can penetrate walls.
God.
I really want, like, artwork of that situation of just Tempestia yelling at a sport event.
But, I mean, hey, that would be a phenomenal follow-up season. Playing the Red and Tempestia Nightmare Children squad.
Oh God, I have a whole squad. They do a like Yoko Ono. Oh, was it Yoko Ono? No, who was it? Who like? There was somebody who like adopted like a child from every continent. Who's the nightmare musician I'm thinking of?
Angelina Jolie and
Oh
Brad
yeah,
Pitt.
yeah.
That sounds right.
I think
Yeah,
that's true.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I thought the answer was going to be Kiryu from Yakuza.
Yeah. Kiryu adopted. It was one of the side quests. So then Topo. Where's Topo?
Yeah.
A few weeks in advance.
Yeah, if there's like some cleanup time, we have a few little jobs to do.
Totally.
Just take care of business here. Topo might even be sent off on some solo stuff, just like pick that off. But I took the soft scar the very last time, and I think what that means is where before Topo would be just like ruthlessly efficient and just shoot someone in the eye from a block away. I think this is more like within the scope of whatever orders, like, get this person. And instead of just like straight up murdering them in the head, like disabling their vehicle and apprehending them, or like, and maybe even putting themselves at more risk because they're not just like setting up and taking the shot.
Where do you think that's coming from? Is it Topo going, well, I did the thing. Like, the big ache is gone, the dull ache remains, right? Like, I don't...
They kind of put everything into that last round there.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I think that sort of took it out of them.
Right. They don't have the same, like, that same ruthlessness, that same drive.
Yeah.
Do we see a moment of that? Is it like, you've got some Jovangelian VIP, some like lord or lady or something who you've like been assigned to bring in?
Mm-hmm.
Or is there something else here we see?
Yeah, I like that. And instead of just taking them out, like it's bringing them in.
Yeah. But we have to, like, the camera sees, like, the sniper sights right, on them first, right? Like that you could have done it, and it would have been easier, right?
And instead, like, I take out their bodyguards.
Right.
Roll up on them.
Anything else in this period? Did people have any other thoughts before we sort of jump more into the future?
I've got a name for that ship.
Oh, yeah, please.
The Few and Far Between.
Oh, great.
Thanks for listening to CalazCon. This episode was edited and sound balanced by Christine Blight. You can reach her for voice acting at CVBlight@gmail.com. The show's music is by Devin Nelson. You can find them on all social media at Devin Decibel. If you'd like to support CalazCon, you can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/CalazCon. Please tell your friends about the show too. Remember, all glory to Calazar.